morning, wherever you are in the world. Welcome, everyone, to Rights and Democracy's new conversation series, The Traverse, the first of many a series where we dig a little deeper into the people and the ideas that make up our movement. My name is Kiah Morris, and I'm the Vermont Movement Politics Director for Rights and Democracy. Before we begin, and we welcome the other folks that are here, we have my beautiful co-host, Asma Elhuni. We have Dr. Shamell Bell here. I think it's important to take a moment, if we can, to sort of sit within ourselves and to ground ourselves in this moment of deep unrest so that we can find places of peace and dig into our heart centers for this work. So we'd love to share with you a beautiful song and a meditation that we invite you to breathe through, to listen to, and to let it fill your spirits.
Of course, my computer is a little bit going slow right now. I will start again. Thank you. 1 second. No, that's not it. Inner peace from my center at the center of me. Please let me feel inner. Close your eyes. From my center at the center of me. Please let me feel. It's about inner peace from my center at the center of me. And I actually would like to share my song. The next song that I would like to play is about breathing it in, letting it out, and letting it go. So those are the two I would love to give to you. They're on Insight Timer by Beautiful Chorus. So if you can just close your eyes, follow your natural breath and breathe it in. Let it out. Breathe it in and let it go. If your jaw is a little tight, move it around. Your shoulders, roll them around your neck. You can repeat the mantra in your head. Breathe it in, let it out. Breathe it in and let it go. Let's do it one more last time. Breathe it in. Let it out. Breathe it in again. And let go all that no longer serves us. That's perfect. Thank you so much for doing that with me.
Wow, thank you so much for that grounding exercise. I think that was very much needed, particularly in this moment. So thank you. That was beautiful. Welcome, everyone. We are excited about this series, excited about its potential to help our communities share ideas that work for them and create ways of addressing the crises in this present time that we're finding ourselves in, that we aren't always equipped to face, or if we are, we aren't always putting it into practice. My name is Asma Elhuni, and I am the New Hampshire Movement Politics Director for Rights and Democracy. And today we'll be talking with our dear friend, a dear friend of mine, a close friend and mentor, Dr. Shamell Bell.
I'd love to tell you a little about Dr. Shamell. Dr. Shamell Bell is a mother. She's a dancer and choreographer, a documentary filmmaker, community organizer, and visionary instigator of street dance activism and the global dance meditation for Black liberation. Dr. Bell received her PhD in Culture and Performance at UCLA's World Arts and Cultures Dance Department. She received her master's in ethnic studies from UC San Diego and a bachelor's with honors in American studies and ethnicity, specializing in African American studies at the University of Southern California. Dr. Bell is currently a lecturer of somatic practices and global performance at Harvard University and a lecturer of African and African American studies at Dartmouth College. Her work on what she calls street dance activism. It situates street dance as grassroots political action from her perspectives as a scholar, a dancer, and a choreographer. Her research examines street dance movements in the South Central LA through an autoethnographic and performance studies lens. Her street dance experiences include featured roles in music videos, award shows, and tours. An original member of the Black Lives Matter movement, beginning as a core organizer with Justice for Trayvon Martin, Los Angeles, Black Lives Matter, LA, and what she now describes as an arts and culture liaison between several social justice organizations, as an ambassador for the Movement for Black Lives and a member of Blackout for Human Rights. She also consults on social justice impact in the TV, film, theater, and music industry. We are so fortunate to be able to have Dr. Shamell Bell here with us today. And we want to encourage you that this isn't a conversation. So please feel free to drop your questions, your comments, your thoughts, your praise, your snaps, all of the things that bring you today into the Facebook Live chat. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Bell.
Thank you for having me, especially during this moment. Actually, I know that you all have things that you want to ask me, but first and foremost, I did not ask, and it just came to my heart right now. If you all knew what sacred land you were, I just wanted to open up with where I am. You mentioned South Central Los Angeles, and I always smile with such joy. That's what you see behind you, and I'm gonna zoom in on South Central Los Angeles. Right here, that's the good old Slauson, right by where Nipsey Hussle, who is our dear ancestor here, was assassinated. So I'm also on sacred Tongva land. So I just want to honor that space. And something that I always do is I do a check-in and I ask how people are really doing. So I know I'm just throwing this out on y'all, but it just came to my spirit. And what I have when we don't have a lot of time is we talk over each other. So we say our name, our pronoun, and just so that we can have all of our voices in the space, we also say how we're really feeling, like a sentence about how we're really feeling as if we're just talking. And then the last thing that I want us to do is if y'all have a favorite dance move, I would love for y'all, even if it's like that will activate the joy. And so again, you say your name, your pronoun, what sacred land you are, and then how you're feeling right now, really. Just talk over each other, and then we end with our favorite, whatever that is, dance move. All right, I'm gonna count to 3. Actually, I'm gonna say 5, 6, 7, 8, because this is gonna be important. All right. So 5, 6, 7, 8, and go. Hi, I'm Dr. Shamell Bell. Make sure you're off mute, y'all. I am on sacred Tongva land right now. I am feeling
Vermont on Abenaki land.
Better now that we're talking together.
And hello.
I'm feeling a little tense, but feeling better. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like I'm getting into space.
My favorite dance move right now, I think I'm gonna go with If It Is.
My favorite dance.
I'm always rocking it back. So rocking it back and bringing it
Yes, I like the rocking it back. Okay. All right. So thank y'all for doing it. I'm sorry to just like take over in that moment, but I was just like, yes, I need to activate the joy because I was, so present with the grief, which is necessary. But I just had to kind of like push and activate that moment. And you all feel so much lighter just from that little bitty rock that y'all are doing. All right, I'll let y'all take it over.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. And yeah, you reminded me, I forgot to mention what land we're in, so thank you for reminding me. At least in New Hampshire, we're in the sacred Abenaki land, so thank you. That's awesome. Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah, that, the breathing, the dance. Oh my gosh, so needed. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and start asking you um, the important questions. We've had many conversations, so like, so many of us are out there just focusing on working all day, and those of us who are organizing are finding ourselves burnt out, and also disconnected and forgetting why we're even organizing to begin with. um, and we start moving in ways that don't reflect the need for healing that many of us, still need to have, right? And healing is oftentimes a process that we aren't allowing ourselves to do, and to know that joy is vital in our lives and in our healing. So I'd like to ask you, what brought you to this work of joy and healing?
Absolutely. So I've always been a performer. I've been performing since I was 2 years old. I saw my mother. She was a choreographer for, or a modeling coordinator for these. It's called Barbizon and John Robert Powers and all these like little when I was younger. And so when I saw my mother also doing fashion shows, I was just like, oh, I'm going to perform, which later turned into more of a job for me. But it kind of positioned me into recognizing that when I was in a state of creativity, it shifted me. I know, Beyonce has like the Sasha Fierce, so like a alter ego. Beyonce has her alter ego. It felt kind of like something moved in me where I was no longer kind of engulfed with the problems of the world. And so that later helped me to, I actually used performance as a form of community organizing. As when I was around 10, I would find someone, if you were my friend, I'd say, you want to be in a music video, or you want to, like, I interned at a casting agency when I was in high school, and I started to get people involved in commercials and, music videos. And that was another form of like using, that performance and cultural production as a way to get us out of our, quote unquote detrimental environments, and having a lack of resources around us in South Central. And so some of my friends made it big, and they're pulling me into Christina Aguilera video shoots, into, film shoots. And, it wasn't until I became, a part of Black Lives Matter and wasn't quite understanding what it meant to be an organizer, because I was like, yeah, I studied all of these things, but I thought I would never have to be a Martin Luther King or a Malcolm X. You learn these things in high school, and you're just like, oh, this is the history. I love history. And so I wanted to know what I could offer to the movement, and that was joy. As someone that is like clear cognizant and clairsentient, meaning I know through my body, I get messages through my body, and I feel very like energetically like my eyes are watering right now, and that's a response because everyone's crying, and I can't even cry myself right now, but my body is absorbing everyone's pain, right? And so I would walk into, we were doing this occupation of LAPD headquarters, and what we now call decolonizing spaces. But so we were there, and I wanted to know how I can, after 18 days, I'm like, how can I lift up this space out of the grief and the sorrow? Because I would feel it, and not only I would feel the harassment from the police officers that would harass us there. I decided to use dance. I said, well, I'm a choreographer. Let's do that. And so my work had always been living is resisting, and so to see that actual joy of dancing and feel like this go to this was an incredible experience that I take with me all the time. And so for me, breath, literal like breath, I never start anything without breath. And so that is joy, that act of living is resistance, that rebellious act for us, especially Black women, to be alive right now. We can't even be in our houses, in our beds, and be alive, so that kind of understanding what it means to see my life and the audacity to smile and have joy as a revolutionary act is what's important to me. Hope that answered your question.
That was just so beautiful. That was so much that spoke to our hearts, that sentient feeling that you talk about, that knowing sentient kind of essence of what we bring from our humanity, right? That is tapping into the vibrations of the earth. And so I'm so grateful that you're sharing that with us and that you're able to transform that into massive, incredible, joyful art. What I'd love to be able to do right now is, I know people are maybe wondering, what does this look and feel like when we talk about using dance as protest, dance as art to express in these spaces that are of tension and are of um, grief, of anger, of all the natural human emotions that go with fighting against oppression. What does that mean to bring in dance and art into that space? So I'd like to invite everyone to watch with us a video of Dr. Bell's amazing work that she's done that will, I think, lift your hearts and spirits and help you understand exactly what we're talking about today.
Then see what our message is. I'm a PhD in culture and performance at UCLA, and I study dance and the intersections of art and activism. Racism is embedded in American society. We've never been post-race. As one of the original members of Black Lives Matter, it's just really important when we're seeing so many images of Black death to remind ourselves we are here to live. I teach street dance activism as an intervention. We were holding and taking space in front of the LAPD headquarters. I didn't want us to just be solemn. I wanted us to live in that space. As we're dancing together, we are lifting frequencies, we're lifting vibrations. I think the American political system should be a choreography, having all dancers welcome, like we do in street dance activism, right? We have a particular end, that beautiful dance piece. It could be used for gay rights, environmental rights. It can be for any type of social justice issue. We want this beautiful dance piece of liberation.
That is absolutely the heart of so much of this, right? And it's something that's beautiful and that comes from our communities, from the global majority, and where so much of what we do is about our expression, and it isn't about an emotive and an effusive experience. So it's been just, thank you so much for sharing that with us. So as we think about that, I mean, again, you brought up an incredible point, even within that video, of, again, sharing joy as an act of resistance. How can we access that? Where are you seeing that more broadly, even not just through the work that you're able to touch through your hands, because you cannot do it all, right? Who else is picking that up, and where else are you seeing that showing up in the world that we're in right now?
Children. So that is the childlike joy. The streets, like I know you hear behind me, South Central, in a little bit you will hear an ambulance. You will hear loud music. For me, just hearing the bustling of, Blackness, it brings me joy to see. And my son, who came right before we started to say go, my son and my dog came on. I was like, y'all weren't here this whole time. And I was like, go. But then I realized, of course he's here, because he's a reminder that this is what brings me joy, and if he was looking appropriate, he's just at home, I would have brought him in. But his spirit was here, and that's the reminder, the joy, the childlike joy. It reminds me that we are to be like children. We are to be like childlike in a lot of ways. And for me, as you hear, look, I think what also gives me that joy is knowing that troubles don't last always, and accessing where I want to be instead of where I stay present, right? So I'm in the present moment. When I came to you all before we started this call, I was just like, I'm here because I love Asma, and it is right now. I feel it's important. We have important, guests that need to hear what I'm going to summon from is literally coming from spirit because I had nothing, right? But it's that ability to recognize that we are able to embody that liberation. So it's like not only looking at the things that we're struggling or fighting or striving for, it's the ability to have that sankofa, right? To have that past, present, and future all occurring right now. The sankofa of looking back in order to reach forward. And so for me, that optimism of seeing that and imagining that place that I know that I am already there, because if there's infinite possibilities, I'm already in that joy and liberation. I grab it from there. I can't see it, but that's what faith is, right? And so that's what I access. I access things that are not in this temporal world and space. It's something that is out there that we need to have the dreamers, the freedom dreamers, as my mentor Robin DG Kelly it's implanted in my head. I'm always thinking about those freedom dreams, and I'm always encouraging others to do so as well.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. And can I just say, while I was watching the video, you were talking about the frequency, raise the frequency, and like just watching the video, what came through a video, a past event that is not live now, is this passing of that energy onto me. So yeah, so just that idea of bringing joy into a space and what that can do. Like, wow. So I know we've had past conversations, Shamell, and one of the things we talked about is this idea that for me, I can name what I don't want to happen to me, right? I don't want, certain kinds of oppression to continue to exist. I can say that I want this to end and I want this to change. And then I remember in our conversations, you said something pretty profound that really struck me and just made me like pause and like really think. You said people don't want to be liberated as much as they don't want to be oppressed. I'm gonna say that one more time for our viewers. People don't want to be liberated as much as they don't want to be oppressed. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I feel like I need to sip some tea right now. When I said, I was like, that's hard for people to hear. People say they want true freedom and liberation, but what I've been looking at and finding is that people don't really care too much about true freedom and liberation, or even knowing what that is. They just don't want to be oppressed, so that sometimes look like you switching the roles with the oppressor, that sometimes look like Black billionaires is the answer, which will never be. Black capitalism as the answers, or we just need to buy this, we just need to do that. And it often looks like, as long as I'm doing better, then that's where my freedom will come from. And so for me, my freedom is so intricately linked to those that are at the bottom. Once Black trans women are free, then I feel like I have true freedom and liberation. And if there is someone that is unhoused and homeless, that has no, that they're not housed, then that's not freedom. That's not liberation. A lot of it also is a mental state, not to move away from the material conditions. Like this, there's a materiality to having systemic oppression and all of these things. But what's really key in this conversation is that when we think about what we don't want and not necessarily think about building, and I said this a little bit in the last thing I answered, building what we do want, we kind of, if we're talking about frequencies, right? You feel it, right? I know you and I are a lot alike, and we can just like, what happened there? What shifted? I'm gonna talk to the people in the chats, or just on the interwebs. That feeling when you walk into a room and there's someone that just argued, or there's someone that doesn't like you and they smiling, but you could just feel like, whew, we're all energy, right? Some of us a little bit more sensitive than others. But a lot of it is not the woo woo, like, we're not just talking about the law of attraction and all of these things, but in freedom and liberation is so very key to envision what we do want. And I think that sometimes when you think about what you do want and it's only in the absence of this, you're continuing to think of the absence of this or lack. That's why sometimes the word hope really frustrates me, because even though hope seems like it's a great word, I hope you do well. To me, I'm like, well, so is there a chance that I won't do well? When you say I hope you're well, and I'm like, is there a chance that I won't be well? And so for me, the word is different, a little bit different from hope. It's like optimistic. I'm optimistic. I don't know what other word I would use, but you get what I'm saying. And that's something similar to what I mean by people are not necessarily wanting to true freedom and liberation that's tied to everyone else's freedom and liberation, and not just an individualistic, I've climbed this ladder. And there goes the ambulance right on cue. And yeah, so I hope that answers what you asked, but I think that I'm gonna let it pass. What I can offer in that regard is, for me, when I decided to make every single, there you go. When I decided to make every single decision based on what freedom felt like, smelled like, tastes like, not what I saw it as presently or what's in my present moment and in my present condition, things started to shift for me, literally, and in my everyday decision making. I chipped away at what that freedom, what would it open up for me? And it could be a simple decision like, today I'm going to do rest. And how can my rest and my body, knowing that we are energetic beings, how can me saving myself, give and open up space for me to come to you all and open up something within you? So it may not look like, breaking down systemic oppression right now, but that choice of true freedom and liberation could be in a simple thing as I wake up and look at my son. And I said this for Black Convocation at Dartmouth, and it was so funny because I really left it in there, that I asked him, what do you want to do for joy today? And he gave it his answer, and he just wanted to watch it, I think it was Pokemon or something. And I said, okay, that's fine. And he asked me, Mom, what do you want to do for joy? And I said, I want to live my Black ass life. Period. And that was so I stopped everything for that day. I rearranged some things in my schedule, and I laid in the bed and I made a decision that I wouldn't talk about whiteness. I wouldn't think about white folks, and not in a sense that it was a negative thing. It was just that I decided to stay in my Black ass joy. And tomorrow is another day that I might think about that. But yeah, it's holistic. I know that was a long way of me answering that question, but I think all of it hints at, true liberation comes from, your mind, right? It's a mental state, not necessarily always focusing on what you don't have or focusing on what exactly you can see in front of your eyes. It's also a spiritual thing where you can, not necessarily hope, but have faith and be optimistic about what the future already is there for you, because there's infinite possibilities, right? And then also embodying that. What does it feel like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? And then the final thing of this true liberation, and not just the absence of oppression, is how it is interconnected with everyone else, and this understanding of oneness. And I think that's what we miss.
I really appreciate that, Dr. Bell. As you were speaking about this, I had an imam ask me this question recently about what my thoughts are on the difference between happiness and joy. And so particularly as it sits within the lives of folks from the global majority, our Black, Brown, Indigenous our BIPOC communities, as we need to center ourselves, what would you say are the differences between happiness and joy?
Yeah, I think that joy for me, and I haven't, looked at the definitions of happiness or joy, but what comes from me is my joy is a choice. Like I make a choice to tap into that joy. I think happiness can also be a choice, but I think happiness is kind of like a destination that people are hoping for. And I think it's kind of mystical in its ways. For me, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I don't know what happiness is. I don't know. I don't know if I felt it. You know why I don't know if I felt it? Because you would think that this girl from South Central Los Angeles, who is now teaching at Harvard and Dartmouth, would have felt happiness my first day of teaching at Harvard. No, I felt deep grief, and I felt sorrow. I felt the need to check myself. So I went and I looked in the mirror and I said, "Who are you and why are you here?" And at that moment, I looked at myself and I was able to tell myself who I really was and why I was in this space, very institutional space. And once I was able to sit in my integrity and know who I really was, then I was able to cry and say, yes, this South Central girl is here, opening up space, shifting frequencies, vibrations, encouraging. But then I was also able to cry and shed and open up and say, okay, I'm of service. But was that happiness? You know why it wasn't happiness? Because I don't ascribe to this systemic pressure of in this individualistic hierarchical structure of what the educational system has trained me to think is success. Where else could I be dreaming right now to do? I'm a PhD and Harvard professor and got there, and what? Where was happiness? But where did it open up? In a space of joy? When I made a choice to get in my classroom, and the first thing I did was that embodied check-in that I had y'all do when y'all did y'all favorite dance. And you know what I did? I got up and I did the crip walk right here from this South Central LA to Harvard University in my black ass joy, living my black ass life, made the decision to have joy in that moment, and my whole situation just shifted. My vibe everything was different, but I'm not sure if that was happiness. That was a choice to tap into joy. Now, happiness, I believe, will be achieved for me when I have this favorite word of mine, and it's called compersion. So I feel in my body true like joy when someone else is experiencing joy. And I feel that's when my happiness would open up. It's the opposite of comparison. When I see my family and my friends, when I see my friend getting a house, or, her husband treating her right, she got, a new baby and all these other things, I'm like, yes, that must be, I'm closer to it. Give me that energy, give me that frequency. And that's to me the difference between looking for happiness. I don't ever look for it, but I look for joy. I hope that's helpful. I didn't tell you nothing about happiness.
That's okay. I mean, what even the psychological definitions of it, it's conditional, right? So there's much to unpack there.
Yeah, I kind of want to go off of that because we live in a society that tells us what happiness is, right? To be happy, you have to go to college. To be happy, you have to earn a certain amount of money. To be happy, you need to look a certain way. It's something that's taught, right? And then you get there and you're like, but I don't feel it. Like, what in the world? And then it reminds me of the same concept of the word privilege. They tell me privilege is a certain thing, and then I'm like, can I just say that, like, I feel very privileged, though you might not think I'm privileged. My culture privileges me where I'm able to be happy in certain environments that you'll never be happy. I'm equipped with that. My culture teaches me how, right? I'm happy when I'm kneeling before God. I'm happy when I'm with family and friends. It's not all this materialistic things. And it's kind of like this word privilege is also almost like white centered. Like, let's talk about the privileges that I got that I value more than your other. Yeah, so can you talk about that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, that's so awesome that you kind of inverted like what privilege is. You know, we talk about it all the time and kind of this negative thing. Or, you know, for me, I know that it's a privilege that I am from South Central Los Angeles and I get to be so tied to, you know, like a culture that people often misunderstand. But if you're from here, I mean, or any, you know, center of blackness, right? You know, Chicago has it, you know, New York has it, and you know, our Brooklyn or Bronx, you know, we have it, you know, but it's more tied to this kinship, right? But this idea of me thinking about privilege and that I have a lot of privilege now as a academic, as a PhD. That's how I usually think about my privilege. But you have shifted me in a way where I can say that yes, you know, I have had privileges because I say this about my family. I'm the only PhD in my entire bloodline that I know of. I know that we have maybe someone that may have gotten like a in distant from like in sciences maybe. I don't even think so. I don't think it and I say that as a privilege, right? But also, does that necessarily give me, because that's still in the Eurocentric standards of something that I acquired, right? So that was where I would always say, like, oh, I have privilege and I don't use it in order to weaponize. You know, I use it in order to open up. Like, I'm the type of person that, you know, once I walk into the door, I'm kicking it open for everybody else. That's how I've always looked at it. But I'm loving what you're saying, in that the privilege of having a culture that is so rich and teaches you, you know, these tools, but also wanting to think about how those tools are sometimes stripped away from, especially like right now, you know, they're it's a real battle as a black woman to stay in the joy, recognizing that, you know, our lives are just not worth more than, what was it? What happened with Breonna Taylor? Did he get charged for shooting the neighbors? Was it where did the bullet go?
Right. Into the neighbor's wall,
In a
basically.
neighbor in the neighbor's wall. So, you know, that I thank you for shifting me in that way, Asma. I will be thinking of a little bit more about like the privileges that I have in a non-Eurocentric way. I love that.
Mm-hmm. And so I would love, Shamell, if you'd be willing to talk. I mean, because I feel this so deeply. One of the things, just in the same way you're like, you have a visceral reaction to the word hope, I have a visceral reaction to the command to choose happiness. Um, Recognizing that not everybody is always in a place that they can do that. There are absolutely conditions around that, things that may be happening in their material world, to their physical body, to themselves, that takes away an ability to be human as well, to sit
Right.
in the spaces of grief or sit in the spaces of anger, or sit in the spaces of fear that make for a whole human experience. And that it's very much, it feels still like a sort of capitalistic individual, like it's on you to make yourself happy. And it's like, oh, okay,
You see,
right?
I didn't even know
Because
what
you've also
happiness
stripped us
was.
of our tools, right? So you are bringing into the orbit the power of dance. And when we look at the history of even Black dance, we look at where tap dance came from, and the fact that Black folks had to shuffle their feet in their churches because they could not show that joy of dance. That you're doing it loud and loudly in front of the very slave catchers of today, that there is something different that's required for us to access those places of joy that don't require a sort of bootstrap sort of mentality to be able to be as our whole selves. Um, I would love to hear more if we're thinking. I mean, we got folks on the streets, we got folks sleeping in encampments trying to make a difference, we got folks putting their bodies physically on the line. We're about to continue to hit the streets, and we're going to be met with our peaceful protests with violent oppression and counter protests, right? So, as we need to access joy, I would love to hear your thoughts. When I thought about my definition between happiness and joy, the piece that made the difference for me about joy is that joy can be multiplied and it's amplified with other people. I feel like that's when I am like, yep, that's joy, because it's shared, it's communal, and it's community. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. And especially in these times where people are going like, how are we gonna respond? How do we hit the streets? How do we step up into these spaces? How do we shut it down if we have to?
That was just perfect, because that's what I was trying to articulate with why I couldn't come up with happiness, but I could find joy. And as I said, it was through my son, it was through the streets, it was through, dance, that I found it through these things. And it's not necessarily external. Like, I don't want people to always think that, you can only find it outside of yourself. But what's happening is it's a mirroring of yourself, right? I know that when I access my joy, I don't know if you recall, but I had to look in the mirror and ask who I was first. And that was my litmus test, right? It was just like, are you truly loving yourself right now? Are you truly, like, these are real talks I'm having in the mirror. And, at that point, I'm able to meet that joy exactly where I'm meeting myself. And sometimes you can't, when you're trying to find happiness, you can't meet someone in that space because you ain't got it. So what I loved everything you had to say. The only thing that I have to add, because I think you answered your own question in the question, and I love that. I'm like, I'll just write some of that down so I can say that later. With me and accessing the joy communally, that's always been something that we have had, especially going back to village mentality, something that I love so much, where I say I'm gang adjacent, uh, if you know what I mean. And with that being gang adjacent, like, what I've noticed in gang culture is the kinship, right? And I said this earlier. And I think that this is something that American society has kind of tried to separate us in this individualistic, you need a house with a picket fence, you need to have this amazing job and 2.5 children, and, your bubble, right? Or you want to get out your mama's house and never go back and then put her in a home, that kind of thing. But for me, the joy that I'm experiencing is the joy when I look at you, Asma, and I know how much I love you. And how dare I not love myself? Because how can I love you? How can you bring me so much joy? As you hear, I love the sirens, right? To me, that's always a reminder of being present in it, right? But what I'm saying with this ability to access joy through the other, I think that's something that happiness can't do for me. And it's something that can't be switched on and off, whereas joy is sometimes a mirror, and also something that's happening collaboratively, like we said. But the final thing about it is, when I'm able to tap in to the supernatural power of joy, I'm not saying that joy is something that actually would make sense to our brains. I'm experiencing joy in something that is metaphysical, that is spiritual, that is outside of anything that we can fathom with our logical mind. It's something that you just have to embody, and that joy, I think that sometimes it's difficult for people to know it if they haven't tapped into something that's higher than themselves. And that does not have to be any kind of religion. Or, Asma, I know you're a person of faith, and so that's also one of those privileges, right? That we have the tools. I know in Black families, dance, and in particular, I use street dance. And the reason why I use street dance is because any dance move I do, you might be able to join in on because you know it. And that's why I chose that. I'm very intentional about why I choose street dance and social dance, and why I pick dances that everyone knows, because that's how you access that communal joy. I don't know if I heard you, but when I started doing If Is Enough, didn't you know what I was doing? That new edition, You knew what I was doing, right? That does something to you. And so I hope that that kind of got at what you were talking about a little bit, but it was so, just eloquently stated that I think people get the point. And I'm definitely, seconding everything you said.
Whew. So I'm gonna bring us to healing now. Um, Going back to the moment that we're living in, so many people are in so much pain. And I will say, unfortunately, what I'm seeing is a lot of hurt people are asking for what they call justice, from a system that has historically been created to oppress, especially the Black community and also the brown BIPOC. As Kiah always reminds us to not center whiteness, she says the people of the global majority. So I guess I'd like to ask you, what do you say when people are hurting and they're asking in the middle of their hurt, they're asking for more trainings for cops, they're asking for basically an expansion of the criminal justice system, right? Instead of, why was there even a cop going to Brianna's house in the first place? Like, why aren't we moving away from this thing? So yeah, can you like respond? Because I think this is a really important, like if we don't capture this now, I think there could be more harm than good that can come out of this moment of let's respond, and how shall we respond as a community?
Absolutely. So the question is definitely about healing. I know my students were, talking in class last time about post-traumatic slave syndrome and kind of like adaptive behaviors that happen, like survival mechanisms. And, often people, like I said, this goes back to the difference between true freedom and liberation and not just wanting to be oppressed. A lot of it has also to do with imagination, like that, those freedom dreams that we're talking about. People cannot fathom anything differently, because they have been socialized and kind of brainwashed into believing that this would be the answer and this is the only way. And so, for me, I had to first suspend my judgment, which is really difficult for me right now, in this moment, because we weren't always as woke as we are right now. And so opening up the space and having the compassion to understand that there are different levels of understanding. And so I can only live and be an example and explain to folks that, there is another way. I can only try to dream and embody and set forth that different way. And because there are the artists, the, you know, the poets, those are the folks who are able to create from nothing, because unfortunately, if you have never seen anything different, how do we expect them to create or to even imagine anything different? So first and foremost, I'll say that. The other thing is literally focusing on what can be the revolutionary answer. So as we spend so much time, there are people that are going to work on the struggle, the dismantling, the destroying, because we need people. When we're building a foundation, when we're building a house, you need the demolition, right? You can't just build it on top of another house that you want to get rid of, or people are talking about, oh, there's too many liquor stores, and I'm just like, okay, well, if, for example, there's a riot that happens or an uprising, now there's space in the foundation to build a new, put the co-op there then, right? But you have to have the vision and imagination, because if that is the property that was once there is gone and you have no vision on what can be there next, my constant question to people is, what happens the day after you reach freedom? If you have no idea of what to put in place, it's like, asking the impossible from people. So one, compassion, to understand there are different levels of understanding, and that people, once we're able to in love enlighten those that are ready and willing, There are going to be people that are going to sit there and think that they can reform the society, but at least it's a little bit better than it was, right? Allow those people to live and do as they may. That defunding, even though I'm a true abolitionist, I'm not going to hate on that. If other people are getting some kind of services because they are fighting to defund something that I wish no longer existed, if that's their highest good, I'm going to support that if it's not detrimental to me, right? There is so much in all movement spaces that I truly don't align with. But do you know I support because I'm an abolitionist? So I would never say arrest anybody because I don't believe there should be prisons. That makes no sense to me. Why is my demand to arrest someone? However, I can't really say that. So if we were to arrest the cops, we were to arrest the cops. But what I'm also saying to the people that are like-minded is that instead, like, what do we do with the people we want to throw away? Those are the real hard questions that I'm saying. Like, what do we physically do with those people? What are the processes? Why are we talking about restorative justice and transformative justice, but we throw people away left and right? Those are the harder conversations. So it's not necessarily being frustrated is the word that I'm saying. I used to be frustrated with my students who didn't know how, like, what group project do I do? What individual project do I do? You're not going to give me the midterm? What do you mean I can do it? And if I'm, I tell them, if you're doing anything for me in this class, you got the wrong assignment. It should be for you, your development, your community, and you can use the text and the things that we've done as a foundation. But if it's for me, you think you impressing me, then you need to go back to find what other thing that you need to be doing. What is your vision? And I think that's where we can leave people in this moment, where you find out, is this their highest good? And then you look at them with love and compassion and welcome the day that they get it. Because I know that there was a lot of us that was like, oh, all of a sudden everybody's saying Black Lives Matter. I know that I went through a feeling of extreme gaslighting and extreme like, y'all better not be falling for the okie doke. However, there was a part of me that also was excited that if it took a pandemic, an uprising, and whatever is going to happen this election season, if that's what it takes, if that's your highest good. And I think that does not fully answer your question, but it kind of pivots it in a way.
I'm just gonna say you kind of basically reminded me of, like, while we're calling to abolish prisons, while we're calling to abolish police, you're calling us to abolish the prisons and police inside ourselves. That's what I heard you just say. So thank you.
Yes, that is beautiful. Thank you for that. I mean, that's all real. That is all real. That is all real. And that is where we need to stay and we need to live in that and recognizing. And I appreciate you saying that there are many people that are going to be required for a revolution. There's not one single role that everyone must play. And we must do all the things. All the things.
All the things, all the things. And not only do we need to do all the things, we need to open up space for all the people.
Mhm.
Right? So we need the hookers. Like I say it like that because that's what one of my friends was like. We need the hooks, the crooks, the this, like just saying it in the South Central way. But like, no, we need all people. We need the gang members. We need every single person. And we need to speak to people in the ways that they understand, right? So it's not enough for us to start talking about abolition and restorative justice and transformative justice and, white supremacist, patriarchal, capitalist society, cisgender, It's not enough for us to talk in those terms without making it plain for the person that is not. I know what that is because I live it, but what you talking about? So we have to make sure that we are in everything we do, speaking to the person that I use D's, like dimensions, right? I talk about in my class what's a 2D, and that would be like a piece of paper, and that would be something that's two-dimensional. It doesn't have that much depth, and I would say that as someone that's just literally, I'm just trying to get by. I don't care about nothing. I don't know. I don't want to know. I'm not awake. I'm not asleep. I'm just here, And then I think about a third dimension, right? And that's someone that has a little bit more depth and a little bit more space to know that I'm working in a system that is not built for me, but I need to live and survive. And then thinking of a 4D reality, which is what I'm saying that we're shifting in right now, where we're able to understand the theoretical, the material, the physical, the spiritual. That's a privilege, right? And then I'm thinking about those that, sometimes you're like, are they a mystic? Like, what's going on? Those people that are in that 5D. And I sometimes vacillate when I'm just too much in the clouds and I'm over here, I might start meditating and levitating, and those are the folks who sometimes we're bridges, where we need to go to that, ascended mastery, right? And we need to go to those different dimensions. But each and every time we speak about these things, I encourage us to make sure that we are reaching all levels of understanding, all of them at the same time, all people. And I know that that's difficult, but that's why you have to like literally have vision. And that's why I use street dance. That's why I, bring it in a I'm a doctor. That's why, I'm all of these different things, because I'm able to shapeshift. And we have to be ready to be able to reach everyone and their level of understanding, and have compassion for those, like my student says, Dr. Bell, I don't know how to be free. That was real. And when he told me that, I had to stop crying in my classroom and asking, why y'all not getting it? And who am I to tell them, like, maybe their highest good is to get that job at that, Fortune 500 company for their journey. I'm not responsible for anybody else's journey. I'm responsible for the people that I'm the lighthouse that came my direction. Like I said, that's the example of, I can't be jumping in the ocean trying to save people when I don't know how to swim. And there's a whole ass lifeguard that's looking like, these niggas right here, stand up. The water's coming here. Y'all don't want to be saved. Y'all over here because you want to be reactionary. And the lifeguard is like, I don't have time for this today. But you know what I am? I'm the lighthouse that's going to stand here in my foundation and shine my little light to whoever is going to make their way over there. And if you haven't journeyed across my light, that was long. Sorry.
No, that was perfect. No, that was absolutely perfect. Um, we have had such an incredible run on this piece, but I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to lift up the work that you're doing right now. Please, if you are willing to share, is there any exciting projects that you're working on in the moment that you want to lift up into this space, that you might be looking for support? You want us to get more guys, more gals, more folks up in here? Like, please, we'd love to hear about the work that you have at hand and how we can help lift that up.
Yes, actually, the 28-day global dance meditation. And here I said earlier that I wasn't going to share my screen, but I am, because I have a million tabs open. And I just want to let you know that it's okay if you have 30 tabs open like me. And I hope that folks can see it. But yes, so this is my link tree, and we have the 28-day meditation. So if you go to streetdanceactivism.com, you can see, the 28-day global meditation. But I'm just going to click on it, and basically, it started with a vision of mine that I saw everyone dancing in my dream to a certain frequency. I'm very, in tune with frequencies. It was like healing modalities, and so basically, I saw people dancing, and there was a shift that happened, and then I felt like everyone moved to the left at the same time, and then I kind of felt everything get lighter. And so I found that we couldn't get lighter unless we emptied out ourselves. We had a process of unbecoming and unlearning. And so we came up with this 28-day meditation. And what it looked like is we started with mantras, and we, at a certain point, like, I want you all to look through it because it's really, really cool. We, of course, started with a land acknowledgement, grounding, My Amelia is my dear sister, had coordinated all of these things. And so it's a liberation journal. We had our children. We started with our children. We know how to make a peace corner. And I want you all just go through it, because we talk about ancestor altars, and it's Black, Indigenous, people of color, and queer guides from different spaces. And we have our embodied meditation practices. We also, at every Friday, and I'm going to stop staring my screen so I don't annoy you all. Yeah, but we also had these moments where we did our mantras together. And this idea, like, I wish I had someone that would do the process of like unlearning white supremacy, the symptoms of white supremacy together. You know, I wish that when I was going through these moments where I'm like, what's going on? Why does my body hurt? Why am I grieving? All these other things. I had someone to be like, oh, I went through that too. You're going to be fine. So it's a collective. It was called a global dance meditation. And like I said, it started from a vision. And then I posted about it on Facebook, and one person said I wanted to do it, and then one person, and then it was about 40 of us that got together and we created this, and it's a free resource. And we'll be picking it back up 28 days before the election. So probably sometime like October 5th, we haven't got an exact date, but probably Monday, October 5th, we'll be doing that process of 28 days again. And if you all look at it, you'll see that it has different topics, from vulnerability to self-compassion to, you know, all the things that you need to do to empty out yourself, to be light enough to actually make that shift, to quantum leap and embody that liberation. So that's the next thing that I want y'all to do with me. So be looking for it, and follow our Instagram at streetdanceactivism.com. Well, it's not .com, at streetdanceactivism, and you'll see what we're doing each day.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Shamell Bell. These conversations were amazing today. And I'm incredibly grateful that you made the time to join us today. Incredibly, incredibly grateful.
Thank you for having me. Like I said, I would love to do it again when I'm feeling much better, because this was me at about, I'm going to give you, I was about a 4 out of 7 in my, 4 out of 10 in my energy level.
Well, I will tell you, we will take you as you are, because that energy level, if you were a 4, I must have been a 1, because now I'm a 4. So
Yeah.
whatever that was, you brought me up. So really appreciate it. I also want to thank everyone else for joining us, watching today, and make sure, please join us, get involved in organizing, get police out of schools. Kiah's working on that on the Vermont side. Make sure you are organizing your towns, your cities to defund police. I'm going to say in the hopes of eventually abolishing them, as I know at least I'm a prison abolitionist, and some others here as well. And so, and asking for other community building projects, as Shamell reminds us, do not just destroy, build. So ask for mental health responders, ask for healthcare healers, ask for conflict resolution specialists, be conflict resolution specialists yourself by being human, by being community members. Also follow us on Facebook, RAD, Rights and Democracy New Hampshire, and also Rights and Democracy Vermont. This is a joint event by state. And make sure you become a member if you're not already a member. Join our email list. I'll drop the link right now, or I'll have somebody drop the link in the chat right now to become, at least to get our email list. And please join Shamell Bell for her meditation sessions. You won't regret it. And we're going to drop that in the link as well. So we'll drop a link rather about that as well, so you can join that for future meditation sessions. I believe they're free. Am I correct, Shamell?
Yes, the app is free. Well, it's not an app yet, but it will be one day. But our website, you see, is kind of like you can use it on your phone and click by day by day. It's absolutely free, and it's all different types of practitioners, and even having famous dance choreographers like Marlise Yerby, who is the choreographer of Rent, Rennie Harris, who is like a street dance legend. They all did conversations and different workshops with Bernard Brown, which is a famous dancer. So it's dance, meditation, and all different types of embodied practices. So please do it with us. It's going to be amazing.
Nice.
Thank you so much. Don't forget to stay tuned. This is a series, and what an incredible way to kick off this series. I hope you all are feeling it. I hope you all are making that chat just fly. Come up with that praise. Let us know how you are feeling. This is powerful. This is important. If you are not following us already on social media, again, be sure to like that so you can stay tuned. And we hope that everybody comes away feeling a little bit restored. And thoughts on about how we can, even in these really intense and difficult times, bring our joy back into this work, right? Thank you so much, Shamell, for being with us here today.
I was just gonna say thank you for bringing me joy, and thank both of you all gave me things to think about. Like, I want to think about my privilege, and I also want to think about my joy and how I'm coming to it communally and all that. Yes, come on.
This is how we do this. This is how we change the world.
That's right.
Thank you so much for you beautiful, strong sisters being a part of this and for supporting and lifting up Black women and women of color and women from the global majority. We are here.
Can y'all take a deep breath with me before we leave?
Yes.
Okay, yes. So the root of the word conspire means to breathe together. And so that's why I'm always breathing and everywhere I go. And so thank you for being co-conspirators with me. And so if you just take a deep breath in and hold it and breathe out. Yes. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. Be safe out there. And we hope to see you soon.
Up for the meditation. No, it's on our website. So you don't need to sign up for the meditation. Go to www.streetdanceactivism.com and you can already be seeing what we have. And then also go to Street Dance Activism on Instagram. But yeah, you can. There's a spot that you can register if you want to stay in contact with us, because we like to do things, as you said, like as a collaboration. And we would love to have you as kin.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, y'all. I'm gonna hop out, and I have to go shoot basketball with my son. We play. Our game is called Freedom.
Joy.
It's called Freedom. So we take shots, and each time you don't make the shot, you go up to, and we get up to the word freedom, and then whoever, it hasn't reached the word freedom, they win or something. We just use the word freedom. So we're gonna go play freedom.
Beautiful.
I'm with it.
Yes.
All right.